Greetings and God's blessing. This is Fr.J.Corapi with a special edition of Weekly Wisdom. This week I'm going to give you a little pre-election alert because so many of you are concerned about the upcoming presidential election in the United States, and rightly so. I know for the last many years we've been saying, well, this is probably going to be the most important election you'll ever vote in. We said that last time and the time before. And certainly we would be justified in saying it this time, and so we do say it this time. This is no doubt the most important presidential election you will ever have a chance to vote in. So it's very important. Now, you know that the Catholic Church and priests don't take an active role in politics. We don't. We're not supposed to do that. However, we have an obligation, not just a right. We have an obligation to teach morality. We have an obligation to form the consciences of the faithful, to help them form their consciences. Conscience is not an independent entity. It's not something that operates in a vacuum. It's something that you have to actively work with. You have to form your conscience to the objective norm of truth, church teaching and otherwise. The bishops came out with a very good document this past year on formation of conscience, on exercising your social obligation, and it's really even a religious obligation to form your conscience and vote a well-formed Catholic conscience. Now, every now and then I'll get a letter from someone or an email or something, and they protest, you shouldn't talk about politics, and they're not even Catholic. My audience is basically the Catholic faithful. Anyone is welcome to listen, by all means. But I'm speaking to the Catholic family, and I'm qualified as a Catholic teacher, a Catholic theologian. My doctorate is in Catholic dogmatic theology. I studied it, I know it, and I'm going to synthesize it for you, and I'm going to make this the clearest statement you've probably ever heard on this subject. You will not be confused at the end of this time. There has been a lot of misunderstanding. There's been a lot of bullying in recent months, in recent years, concerning the interaction between religion and politics, using a specious notion of the separation of church and state. The Founding Fathers never intended that religion wouldn't be an active part of our society. What they intended was that there would be no one state-sponsored religion. That's what they intended. Remember where they came from. They came from England. They came from a country with the Church of England, which dictated to the people. They had no freedom of religion, basically. The religion was under the thumb of the government, and so the Founding Fathers didn't want that. No state-sponsored religion. You have to have freedom of religion, and certainly we totally agree with that. But that doesn't mean that religion is to be expunged from the consciousness of the citizens of this country. This country was founded on Christian principles, and some of the Founding Fathers went so far as to say this form of government cannot and will not endure if Christian principles do not endure. And so we not only have a right, we have an absolute moral obligation to know our religion, to form our conscience in accordance with that religion, and yes, even to vote in accordance with a well-formed Catholic conscience. And that's what you have to do this year. It's not whatever you want to do. You can't say, well, my conscience tells me no. Your conscience isn't an independent entity. You must form your conscience to church teaching. And it's very simple. This is a no-brainer. This is not rocket science. I continue to be amazed at the gross ignorance of so many Catholics still. And there's no excuse for it. The bishops have clarified this. Other bishops have then clarified what the bishops have already clarified. This is not difficult. In the last several decades, the preeminent moral question of our society, of Western civilization in general, comes down to one thing. Are there many issues? Yes. Are there many important issues? Yes. But there is an overriding, preeminently important issue. It concerns a right. It concerns the right to life. No other issue takes precedence over that. It's amazing the inane arguments that come forth. Presidential candidates that say, well, a woman should have a right to choose, parroting that sick, hackneyed expression over and over again. And you want to ask, why doesn't someone stop them and correct them? The right to choose what? Have you ever noticed it's the only case in language where they don't finish the sentence? A right to choose? Choose what? A right to choose what? The last few weeks with the economic chaos that we've had, I've got a statement for you, my dear friends. God is not a disinterested spectator in the affairs of man. God is not a disinterested spectator. God sees everything we do and everything we fail to do. Over 48 million of his beloved children have been slaughtered on the altar of convenience in this country. And every one of us who votes for a pro-abortion candidate is voting for evil. You're voting to perpetuate this Holocaust. And we said never again. And are we so morally numb, so blind, so deaf, that we can't see what we're doing? Or do we see it and we don't care? Is it either disinterest or is it cowardice in many cases? I'll ask you a question. If more than 48 million unwanted women over the age of 60 were executed by having their heads ripped off in the last 30 to 40 years, would you care? Would you be indifferent? Would you raise a hue and a cry? I hope so. You think a child in the womb is less human than a 60-year-old person? You would be wrong. From the moment of creation, the human dignity adheres to that individual human being. Why is every human being noble, valuable, precious, unrepeatable? Because God Almighty created that individual human being. Before I created you, I knew you by name. You remember what happened in the Gospel of Luke when Mary, 6 months with child, went in haste to the hill country of Judea to visit her cousin Elizabeth, who miraculously also was with child, with her son John the Baptist. And you remember what happened when Mary approached and Elizabeth, her cousin, told her, as you approached, the babe in my womb leaped for joy. What did it say? It said, the baby in my womb leaped for joy. It didn't say abstract fetal tissue leaped for joy. The Word of God, the unalterable, immutable truth says, the babe in my womb leaped for joy at the approach of the Messiah. You see, the one baby in the one womb recognized the Messiah in the womb of the Mother of God and leapt for joy. It's a child, not a choice. No one has the right to choose to murder an innocent human being. And no nation has the right to legitimize not only murder, but genocide. And so we have gone from homicide to genocide, and we wonder why things are falling apart. My dear friends, we had better act, and quickly. A vote for a pro-choice candidate, a pro-abortion candidate, is a vote for evil. It is you may not intend it directly that way, but you are participating in an incredible evil, and it's not justifiable. The bishops in several ways, in several different conferences, have stated you can't do it. There was some misunderstanding. When the Holy Father was asked about it some time ago, he said, well, for a proportionate reason. He was speaking in general theological terms, not in a specific case. Well, it would be possible for a proportionate reason that you might vote for a pro-choice candidate. But in the concrete, the situation we have today, is it possible? No, absolutely not. Where you have another candidate who is not blatantly pro-death, then it's a clear choice. Some say, well, the proportionate reason, the war, the economy, that's not a proportionate reason, not even close. What conceivable proportionate reason would be so heavy as to justify defending and advancing genocide? There isn't any, I assure you. There isn't any. And any attempt to come up with it is pure rationalization. You can't do it. Let me read to you a statement from the bishop who ordained me a deacon many years ago, a friend of mine, Bishop Rene Gracida from Corpus Christi, Texas. Here's his statement, which he made on radio. It's a radio ad. He's very courageous for doing that. All the bishops that speak out are very courageous for doing this. Let me read it to you. Quote, "This is Bishop Rene H. Gracida reminding all Catholics that they must vote in this election with an informed conscience. A Catholic cannot be said to have voted in this election with a good conscience if they have voted for a pro-abortion candidate. Barack Hussein Obama is a pro-abortion candidate." End of quote from Bishop Rene H. Gracida. A form of, I was going to say subtle, but I'll strike the word subtle. A form of outright intimidation has been used in a cheap attempt to suppress our First Amendment rights. The right not only to worship as we please, right to our religious beliefs, but the right of free expression, freedom of speech, under the specious pretext of saying, well, those who have tax-exempt status can't be involved in politics. Well, we're not involved in politics. We're involved in morality and teaching morality. We have not only a right, but an absolute positive moral obligation to form the consciences of our faithful. We have to help them. We have to do everything possible to teach them and show them what's right and what's wrong, what's true and what's false. And this is part of it. It's part of the social teaching of the church. We have to do this, and Catholics have to do this. You, in my estimation, this is my personal opinion, you'll be committing a grave sin, a mortal sin, if you knowingly and willingly put forth an agenda, a political party, a candidate that perpetuates this gross horror called abortion. There is no other issues. Not all issues taken together are as important as this single issue. 48 million and counting slaughtered in the most barbaric fashion imaginable. And we've done nothing about it because we're so blind, so deaf when it comes to the truth. A day of reckoning is fast coming upon us. You think the economy has turned bad? You haven't seen anything. You think we have problems now? That's a dim intimation of the problems to come. If we act in a fashion that shows us to be God's enemy, and I assure you, murdering 48 million, no, a billion of his beloved children murdered in just my lifetime under the specious pretext of choice, in the court so divorced from common sense, right reason, logic, and objective morality, approves it and calls it a privacy issue? Moronic. That was the day Satan donned judicial robes. It was the death knell for this society. Unless enough of us get a clear way of thinking, unless enough of us have courage. I think the reason a lot of bishops haven't done a whole lot is because they've been intimidated. They've been threatened by the government and by individuals. There's a violence behind this. And I assure you, if we don't take a stand now, it's going to be harder as time goes on. We're going to lose more and more freedoms. Remember this. The abuse of freedom inevitably leads to the loss of freedom. It is not a right to choose to commit homicide. Oh, a right to choose. Ask yourself, choose what? A right to choose what? To extinguish the life of another innocent human being? No one has that right. That's not a right. That's the destruction of a right. Somebody else's right. The child's right. Right to life. The most preeminent right. Bishop Vasa, a very courageous and fine bishop from Oregon, responded to some questions. You know, this is not my mere personal opinion. Many bishops have pretty much said what I'm saying here. I'm just echoing what they've said. But Bishop Vasa said that he was interpreting the statement, the pastoral letter issued by the National Conference of Catholic Bishops. It's called Faithful Citizenship, noting that a pro-abortion stance disqualifies candidates from consideration by faithful Catholics. This references LifeSiteNews.com speaking with Bishop Vasa after the session describing the deliberation among the U.S. bishops over the document, Faithful Citizenship. Bishop Vasa said, when we were working on the document, Faithful Citizenship, and the issue of whether or not a person's adamant pro-abortion position was a disqualifying condition for a politician, the general sense was absolutely, yes, it disqualifies them. And so that's Bishop Vasa. There are many others. The bishops in Texas, the Bishop of Dallas, Texas, also said that. Forming consciences for faithful citizenship in paragraphs 34 through 37 addresses the question of whether it is morally permissible for a Catholic to vote for a candidate who supports an intrinsic evil, even when the voter does not agree with the candidate's position on that evil. The only moral possibilities, now this is a quote from the bishop in Texas, the only moral possibilities for a Catholic to be able to vote in good conscience for a candidate who supports an intrinsic evil, and abortion is an intrinsic evil, are the following. A, if both candidates running for office support an intrinsic evil, abortion. If both candidates running for the office support abortion or abortion rights, a Catholic would be forced to then look at the other important issues and then through their vote try to limit the evil done. In other words, choose the lesser of two evils. Or B, if another intrinsic evil outweighs the evil of abortion. While this is sound moral reasoning, there are no truly grave moral or proportionate reasons, singularly or combined, that could possibly outweigh the millions of innocent human lives that are directly killed by legal abortion every year. That's what the bishop said. There is no proportionate reason to justify voting for a pro-abortion candidate under the present circumstances. It's a no-brainer, in other words. So, if you still don't get it, let me say it really clearly. No Catholic in good conscience can vote for a pro-abortion candidate in the present circumstances. What are the present circumstances? You have a candidate who is not pro-abortion. You vote for the candidate that is not pro-abortion. Why? It is the overriding, preeminently important issue, and all the other issues taken together don't sway the balance of the scale. 48 million and counting. That is a blight and a pox on this society, and we will answer for what we have done and what we have failed to do. My dear friends, do not be any party whatsoever to supporting, to putting forward this horrible evil. This election is very important. If you elect someone who is pro-death, and that's what a pro-abortion candidate is, no woman has a right to choose to commit murder. No man has a right to choose to commit murder. If that kind of distortion of logic, right reason, and morality is allowed to prevail, then I assure you we will go a step further down the road to showing ourselves as enemies of God. And if you think the economy is bad now, we will be begging in the streets in short order. God can take away what He has given. And I assure you He will. If we keep it up, if we refuse to open our eyes and see the light, if we refuse to defend the most innocent, most utterly vulnerable of our brothers and sisters, God will not endure it indefinitely. This country will be reduced to dust and ashes. And we'll turn to God one way or another, either willingly or because we were forced to our knees because of the consequences of our own obstinate lack of moral perception. And so D-Day's coming. V-Day. Vote. Vote. Get out and vote a well-formed Catholic conscience. You must vote for the candidate that is strong on the defense of innocent human life. For no other issue, not all other issues taken together, are as important as that one. For a good economy won't do that murdered baby a bit of good. Good social programs won't do him a bit of good. For the right to life precedes all other rights. May God grant us the wisdom, the knowledge, the understanding, and the courage to vote a well-formed Catholic conscience. Do it, my friends. Do it, and you'll be striking a blow for that which is good and true, a blow for the kingdom of God. God bless you, God love you, and goodbye.